Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm really honored to be here with this great group of people with a great philosophy of life, and that's wonderful. You know, when they asked me to come to the program tonight and be a guest speaker, my first thought was, hey, I'm 96 years old. I'm retired. I live in a retirement place. I have a wonderful wife. I'm leading a good life. What in the devil am I doing here? Well, I tried to figure it out. Then I said to myself, well, let's see. I am a live witness to the atomic bomb that fell on Nagasaki. I was there. I was on Clark Field 2.5 hours after they bombed Pearl Harbor. The Japanese came to Clark Field. We were told to take our tanks and circle the field because we were expecting Japanese paratroopers. Well, the American planes were flying. I looked up there and I said, gee, those are great planes. And it was until the bombs started to fall. They were the Japanese at 12:35 on December 8th in the Philippines. So the war started and I was there. And then we were told that the Japanese were coming in to Lingayen. 35,000 troops, tanks, machine guns, bombs, anti-tank guns, and they wanted some tanks up there to stop them. Well, they ordered one company of tanks. They wanted 20 tanks up there. Unfortunately, post-ordinance only gave us enough gasoline for 5. So 5 tanks went up there to meet the Japanese. I know, I was one of them. I matched the baton. We surrendered. And I made the baton death march. Yes, I was there. And so slowly I started to say, well, maybe I do have something to share with you. So what I decided to do is to talk about things that maybe you just never knew about, or that you just didn't know happened. Let me give you an example. My book, My Hitch in Hell, which I'm sure that some of you know about, was published in 1995. And in 1995, the Japanese did something very interesting. They passed an ordinance in their Japanese diet. They appropriated $16 million to invite all POWs and their families to Japan for peace and friendship at the Japanese expense. The bill ended up saying all POWs except Americans. Did you hear that? All POWs were invited except Americans. I'll tell you later what happened with that. But so these are the kind of things that people don't know happen. When we got out, people say, oh, why didn't you know about those things that were in my textbook? I wrote a book, so how come you didn't know about it? 1995, that means the war was over for 50 years. Why didn't you know? Well, the reason you didn't know about it was because the United States government in 1942 established a gag order that if any of the prisoners of war were able to escape and get back to the States, they were not allowed to talk to anyone about what happened. We were not allowed to in 1942. And the reason for it was so obvious. The United States government was afraid that if the Japanese found out what we were doing, about telling the people, that they would be much harder on POWs back in Japan. And so they decided at that time to stop all communication. And so for the first 17 years, most probably, no, let's see, yes, about that. No, the first 17 months. You heard nothing, because nothing was broadcast in the United States. They didn't want to take a chance. Did you know that? When we got out of prison camp, the day we got out, we were handed a document to sign that said we would not talk about anything that happened as a POW without first getting permission from the War Department. You know, maybe that's why I didn't write the book earlier, because it's subject to court-martial. These are things that people don't know happen. Well, so the war started on December 8th in the Philippines. We went up to Lingayen Gulf to meet the Japanese. My God, 35,000 troops, well equipped, well fed, to meet us. We were fighting alongside of the Philippine Scouts on the 26th Cavalry. Ladies and gentlemen, they were riding horses. They were being slaughtered. The Japanese were slaughtering them, riding horses. Some of the bravest men I ever saw were the Philippine Scouts. Our tanks went into battle. The first tank was hit within the first 2 minutes. Went off to the side of the road, and Lieutenant Benmorn, who later became a Jesuit priest, he and his crew of 4 were captured that day. The second tank had a shell that went right straight through the front, took the bow gunner's head off as it went out the back. The tanks had 4 people in it. The driver. Next to the driver was the bow gunner. He operated 2 machine guns. Then there was the radio operator. And then there was the commander, who steered the tank and shot the 37mm cannon. That was in all the tanks except mine. I was in the 3rd tank. I was in the tank that our captain was supposed to be in. But he was in the rear echelon. He decided not to get in the tank with us. So I became the radio operator and the tank commander that morning. As a shell came through the tank, went right straight through the back and exploded. We had 5 tanks that we started with. We had 3 that we were able to take back to Bataan. Bataan. Do you know that that was established back in 1937? They decided it was called the Orange Plan. If Japan should be at war with the United States and the Philippines, it was decided that all the forces would end up coming into Bataan and wait for reinforcements from Pearl Harbor. It wasn't long after that, there was another meeting with Churchill, President Roosevelt, MacArthur. They had a meeting, and they decided that there was going to be another plan. It was called Rainbow 5. You can check these out on your internet if you like. Rainbow 5 said if the United States should end up in war with Japan and Germany at the same time, it was hereby agreed that all the forces and supplies and effort would be to resolve the war in Europe before the one in the Pacific. In other words, it was pre-dawn. We were not going to win. There was no way we were supposed to win.